And very well-meaning parents will say to their kids, I just want you to follow your passions. Like we have these resources so you can go like do whatever you want to do. Holy crap. How do I begin to narrow that down if I can do
Yep.
whatever I want to do?
Welcome back to the Family Wealth Edge. Kristen, it's been a while since it's just been you and I talking about the stuff we do for the families we work with. How are you?
Good. I know I missed it. I missed just having us, and I'm excited. I have an announcement to make for our listeners, but mostly I'm excited for me that Vincent is coming to Florida to visit me. I get to hang out with him and his beautiful family. So I'm excited about that. But you should also be excited because we are going to film a couple of episodes in person, which we haven't done before, and that will be really
Yes.
fun. So looking forward to that.
The Family Wealth Edge live and in person. It'll be fun. And thank you, Kristen, for hosting us. We're looking forward to it. It's been some time since you and I have broken bread in person. We're very excited about spending some time in Florida and getting out of this Canadian weather that we always poke fun at on this podcast.
It's easy to do, but we'll be excited to have you. So, since we're together, just the two of us today, I was thinking it might be nice, selfishly for me, just to hear from you. What are some of the trends that you've been seeing in your work, in your individual coaching calls? And
Yeah.
maybe that will help someone else.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, right? Because it's even with the work, trends come and they go, and themes emerge and disappear. But I would say lately, what's been really present again the theme of the struggle, the tangle, as we use with our coaching clients, of this the idea, the feeling of this paradox of choice. So I've been very lucky the last few months to be coaching a number of rising gens in their 20s from these affluent, complex families. And all of them seem to have the same tangle, which is, I don't know what to do. I can do anything. Doors are open. We know people. And yet they really struggling to make a decision for themselves. And I think it's something that you talked a lot about when we first started working together. And a lot of the data that you've been collecting reinforced that. There's a whole notion of shame too, and insecurity and fear about making a decision in your 20s. And, looking back on it 20 something years ago, as we were, you really empathize with these rising gen about this, about their own personal path. So that's a theme that's coming up. I'd love to hear some insights from you. I know this is a theme that emerges a lot in your work as well.
Well, often, I think we see this as such a common theme, and I love how you called it out as the individual will personalize it to themselves and be like, "Oh, something's wrong with me because I can't make a decision." But really, I think this is also very tied into what you beautifully described as the tangle of the paradox of choice. And this reminds me of the JAM study. Do you know the JAM study?
I've never heard of
Uh,
it.
it perfectly illustrates this. So I don't know if it was like consumer science or whatever, but someone in Columbia University started this research study, and then I think it's been replicated tons of times, where they put out several jams or jellies for people in a market to try. And so it's like sample, right? What could be more exciting than the sample at the grocery store? And so you can go in and try the different jellies. The more jellies they have, the less likely you are to actually buy jelly, is what they learn. And so if there's only like one, two or three options, then you actually will buy the jelly because you have not overwhelmed me with too many choices. I can clearly say I can go this way or that way and then make a choice. When I have 17 choices, how do I begin to narrow it down? And that is definitely what our client families struggle with, because if, for example, my career choice is not just tied around, what job do I want? What are the benefits and what's the income? But like, and very well-meaning parents will say to their kids, I just want you to follow your passions. Like we have these resources so you can go like do whatever you want to do. Well, holy crap. How do I begin to narrow that down if I can do
Yep.
whatever I want to do?
Yeah.
Overwhelming. Too many
And
jelly.
yes. And I think it's what I'm finding a lot tangled in with the paradox of choice is this inability to make a decision. So now we talk about like find a wise counselor to help you along the way. And yet at the end of the day, you have to make a decision for yourself. And it's almost because of the love and affection that parents want. And look, I'm guilty of it too with my boys. You try to remove obstacles, you try to make life easier. But if you do that all the time, Now our, the work, my boys are 9 and 5. I deal with obviously rising gen in their mid 20s to late 50s. It seems they're sometimes they're getting older. That trend, that inability to make a decision for yourself carries forward. And then it gets really sad is the wrong word, frustrating even as a coach. And then you empathize because we were there once. I know I was there once when I came back from my travels overseas at 26, and you can do anything you want. And what do you do? Thankfully, I found this path many moons ago, but it's this fear. It's what if I can say yes to everything, like you always say, how and when do I say no? And then it's this,
Yes.
or
Really?
yes, or yes. But then it's this like fear. If I decide to go left or right, what am I missing out on? And it's really surprising that, it's been repeated a lot lately, I would say, which is why I'm thankful for this opportunity to kind of flesh this out with you. How do we help these younger folks make a decision?
Yeah, and get out
Like,
of the analysis paralysis, which is, I think, the state that you described as sad, because I do think that people start to feel hopeless when they're just ruminating and don't really know how to move forward. I think another interesting factor in this is that I wonder, I could be wrong, but I wonder for a lot of the clients that I've seen struggling with this, they often are really high achieving people, and they like went to Ivy League schools, and in the phases of life where everything was scripted, they know how to win when there's a really clear rubric. But then if you get out of school and the rubric goes away and it's kind of like follow your dreams, that's completely disorienting because that's not how it's been before. And so I think if they can find a way to create a new rubric, you're going to have to make that rubric yourself, right? And that's what coaching is beautiful for, because you can help to, like with the clients that you're working with, that's essentially what you're doing and helping them to clarify, what's most important to them. So I think defining a rubric, that rubric looks different than it did when you were in school and having to do a presentation or turn in a paper, but helping you to define what are some of the things that are most important to you, even if that's just, I would like to have a job where there is social interaction with my peers. So maybe that is adding a constraint for you where there's otherwise not a constraint, and that's based on something. It's not just pulled out of thin air. Maybe it's based on your Clifton strengths that tell you you're a relator, and so being around other people is gonna be really, like, bring out your energy. So I think that if you can add some constraints, sometimes it'll feel artificial, but hopefully it's informed by something. Add some constraints to help you artificially narrow what is a very wide open road, then that will help you to start to take some action. And then the other thing I would say is tying into a book that I love and you've heard me talk about before, Meg Jay's book, The Defining Decade, specifically for people in the decade of their 20s, and how helpful it can be to just launch knowing this might not be the perfect path. And then you're going to get so much data. You're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn about the world. And then if you need to make a pivot, you need to make a pivot, but it's not the end of the world.
I think that's a brilliant point, is that they feel if they make the wrong decision at 25, let's say, that their world is going to end. And it's so, again, experience is a wonderful thing. We were told that as kids, and now we're living it, sharing back that wisdom to the younger ones. It's one decision in a lifetime of thousands of decisions you have to make, as long as it's not one that blows you up. But it's how encouraging them make a choice. And if the choice turns out not to be the right one, figure out what the next path is, the next step is. And I find I get, and it's a tough conversation, right? We work with very affluent, complex families, complex systems. And yes, the problems they have are very different than problems the average North American family experiences in a day, but yet they do have problems. And I find with these rising gen, where their life in a lot of ways has been designed for them. We live in a beautiful neighborhood. You're going to go to this school because dad or grandpa went there. We have in some cases, we have a family business. You're going to follow suit. You're next in line in the family company. There's been a path developed for them. That's where I find there's the most stunted or paradox of choice. And it's like, so I encourage my clients, our rising gens, to your biggest challenge now or opportunity is to really own that ability and power to design your own life. If you do anything over the summer in between school or in between jobs, it's to sit down and really get clear on, like you said, data on yourself. Who are you? What do you like? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And just start. The other book that we reference a lot is Designing Your Life by the two folks at, I think, Bill Burnett, and I forget the co-author's name at Stanford. I apologize. We'll put it in the close notes. But I share that book with everybody because there's a process there to help you think through what is it that you actually want to do. Um, and it's never ending. I thought it was interesting how that theme of paradox of choice and this being stunted kind of disappeared for a little bit in my work. I wasn't seeing it as often. I don't know, maybe because the world and all the geopolitics are going on, but it seems that the last 6 months in my coaching calls, it's this repetitive, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to speak to. And then this fear, this almost embarrassment as well of trying to talk to mom and dad.
Well, I have a
Yeah,
theory on this. I don't know if it's
please.
right or wrong, but about why it went away for a while. I think there was a post-COVID permission slip, I almost wanna call it, where you could kind of a lot of people moved back in with mom and dad, and you could go in and kind of not have a normal job. So if you weren't going out to a 9 to 5, no one was asking any questions. So I think it was a little bit easy during that time frame to kind of tuck away and not have it be really visible to others that you weren't doing, like, standard work procedure or whatever. But I think in now a very post-COVID world, 2026, I think it's more difficult to hide in that way, and I think more people are getting back to standard routine of life, and so it may be the case that so many years have passed where they're like, "Okay, I've gotta figure something out now. I can't get away with this hiding anymore."
You mentioned you have a tool or a model that you can help some of our Rising Gen folks that are listening with the paradox of choice.
Yeah, I think it's really the rubric. It's developing a rubric for yourself. And so that really, I mean, someone could do it on their own, but a lot of times coaching really helps that. And assessments can really help that too, to just figure out who you are and what are the top three aspects that would benefit you to be in a job. Or this doesn't always have to be around career. Sometimes people get stuck with regard to like, what role do I want to play inside of my family enterprise? And so they're kind of spinning wheels on that. I think it manifests in many different ways. Really, it's anytime you're stuck. To be able to narrow, okay, what are the top three characteristics or values that I'm seeking from this thing that I'm struggling to decide? And hopefully that's informed by who you are. And then make that rubric for yourself and literally go out onto the diving board and jump into one of them. Swim around. I love your recommendation for the book Designing Your Life because, that's tapping into design thinking, which is like get in the mix, start testing, prototyping, designing, redesigning, designing, gathering data. It's hard for these people who have successful parents. Dad is like the business leader of the year in town, and mom is the philanthropic leader of the town, and I can't figure out what choice I want to make. I think that those two things are tied in together. So some of this is just jump off the diving board and get involved in something. And then there's like a loop there that happens where mom and dad are going to be less concerned when there's forward progress being made. Although it feels like I don't know if this is going to be the right choice. I think if you could just dive in and start making some forward progress, then other things start happening. Then you start to get some momentum, and then it's not only you who's kind of driving this engine. And I think the move to get from inertia to action is harder. Once you get into action, then things start to fall into
Yeah.
place.
Thank you, Kristen. So, for our listeners out there, specifically the Rising Gen, you are not alone in this conversation and this tangle. We've both been there in different ways. We see it all the time. To Kristen's point, just start. Make a first step, make a decision, pick up the phone and speak to somebody if you need to. Reach out to Kristen and I if you feel so inclined. Kristen, another episode of the Family Wealth Edge, the paradox of choice, how we're helping our Rising Gen clients navigate this complex world they find themselves in. Stay tuned. We've got some great guests coming up. And then later on in the year, Kristen and I will be filming our first in person The Family Wealth Edge podcast. Thank you.
Great topic.